Today you're going to see a full-length tutorial and we will be painting 2 watercolors. This is the first one. It's a bit simple, but I'm using it just as a warm-up. So we're just going to get a nice feel of watercolor and loosen up a little bit. The second one will be this. I'm using the same photo reference that I used for my acrylic class. That's why it looks familiar. So we will be talking values, colors, again, dry brush techniques, wet on wet. You can pause the video and just paint along, and this is the great way to learn. So make sure you like and subscribe to my channel so you can get the latest videos, and just enjoy it and be brave. All right, so do you think we can do both today? I'm kind of overly optimistic sometimes, but I think we could. So which one do you want to start with first?
Try sunset.
The sunset?
Yeah.
Okay, here's Lindsay. Hi Lindsay, how are you? I think we have everybody. Awesome. All right, so let's vote. Sunset or the forest? Forest is a little bit more difficult in my opinion because it has these rays of light, and probably a little bit more detail. But the sunset has its own challenges as well. So whichever you want. Let's not waste any time. We're gonna start with the sunset. Okay, okay, my palette disappeared. That's fine. Okay, here's my palette. Okay, just as always, we have the usual colors. Always ultramarine. This time I have cadmium yellow. I have quinacridone red. I have the indigo, sienna, burnt sienna, and a whole bunch of other colors, which I hardly use, but I just keep them there just in case. So let's start with the sunset. And what I like about this picture is the limited palette. It's very nice, it's moody, it has this wonderful atmosphere, and it just have very few colors like the dark and the yellow. So we almost want to be monochromatic with this. So what I'd like you to do is just very roughly just sketch out where these mountains are going to be, which is probably a little bit below the center. And just do a little bit of a silhouette. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. So just a bit of a silhouette, very, very roughly. Like, don't make it completely straight. Maybe have some, obviously going up, very roughly. Now notice there is a hill on the left that is in front of the ones behind. So we kind of have levels of depth in this whole scene. So definitely there is one over here, and we're just going to roughly put, there's another one over here. All right, and here in the kind of a corner going somewhere near the center, we're going to put a little land, and that's all we need. I'm not gonna draw the clouds because then that's going to really make us feel very, very confined. The clouds will be painted and we'll make it in a nice, very soft, beautiful way. So notice the light, notice the dark, just see it as light and dark pretty much. Okay. So we have our water, we have the big brush, and we are ready to paint. I'm just checking to see if anybody's coming on. I know we have a class of 7, so we're good. Okay, wonderful. So I have my big flat brush. And are the videos, by the way, helpful? Do you guys find them helpful to just go back and check and take a look?
It was very, very helpful for me.
Great.
Because I couldn't keep up much, but the video helped me a lot.
Okay, great. Yeah.
To watch what you're actually doing, not to paint at the same time.
Exactly, because you can always stop, take a look, and pause. Because now we're all gonna paint together, so it's kind of hard to follow. But I will try to be as slow as possible can under the circumstances, because we are painting fast. So here we go. So I'm starting with the water again, and we're gonna start top to bottom, like just wet it, kind of left to right. Just go left to right, and Yeah, be generous with your water. I mean, not too generous, like don't dump your water completely. But we're going to start creating this nice gradient. Nice gradient. And hopefully you have yellow. But see, if you notice, there's a bit of bluish color. It's not quite blue, but I'll just grab a little bit of ultramarine, just a little bit, and maybe dab some of my dirt here, like, so it's not completely yellow, so maybe just gray. How about that? So lots of water, and my very first like color is gonna.
Lucy, are we supposed to see your thing? I can't see it. I can't see your canvas paper.
You need.
Everybody sees it or no?
You probably need to go on grid view. If you go up top and go on grid view, and you will see, and then pin it.
Up top, review it.
Top right somewhere, it should be telling you what view you have. See on the very top to the right, see these squares? So you should have the view.
Will somebody tell me again how to pin it? Right click on the mouse.
Yeah, double click very fast and you have two options. One is pin and the
Okay,
other one.
thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so before everything starts drying, let's grab some yellow. So I'm getting some of this cadmium yellow that is really bright. All right, so everybody's good. And because it's super bright, I'm gonna tone it just a dash of orange, but nice warm yellow. And just make sure that this whole gradient keeps going. We're having a little gradient going. And now you can get even more intense with your yellow. So I have this interesting Indian yellow that is very warm, and I'm dabbing into my cadmium, which is sometimes could be really opaque. So I like that. So here, as you can see, some more gradient, even some dry brush technique here is happening. Obviously it's not so wet on wet, but here in the middle I can add some more orange. So just have kind of an interesting gradient. I know it looks very organized right now. It's like it's too organized. So immediately, while it's still very wet, I'd like you to lift where all these clouds are going to be. So while everything is very wet, we're gonna just lift kind of roughly. Don't be too precise. And I know there's some clouds, there's some white clouds here, and that gives this soft shape to the clouds, like really makes it very soft. And make sure your gradient is still wet, because now with our paper towel, I'd like you to swipe, like do this swipe movement to create the rays of light. And this happens super fast, as you notice. See, 1, 2, and yes, and 3, and just a little bit here. I know there's another one. Make sure it's not too contrived so it doesn't look too intentional. And again, with the same paper towel, let's kind of dab a bit, a little bit here, where we see some clouds, sort of the harder shapes. See how it lifts? It lifts, and it looks really nice and soft. So we're not putting any darks yet, but I'm just lifting a little bit and creating some interesting cloud shapes with that. So this part here, this is in the middle, somewhere here is going to be the soft, the dark, no, the lightest and the darkest. So there is a high contrast right here. Okay. Everybody doing okay? Yes, and while everything, it still should be wet. Everything should be quite wet still. Here, I have some. I'm gonna mix a color, a darker color for these clouds. So this dark color is almost like gray, but darker gray. So I'm taking some ultramarine, mixing it with some indigo, And let's grab some browns, whatever brown you have, and just get this really, really gray tone. So while things are still wet, let's create the darker shapes of the clouds. And see how I'm moving my brush in kind of all directions, because it's not quite perfect, and we're going to soften these edges right away. So I'm just kind of putting this dark and cleaning my brush, and with this brush kind of softening some of these edges, because I don't want them to be so sharp, just some of them. I mean, there are many ways of painting clouds, really. And you can lift, I keep forgetting to tell you that you can actually lift your paper and just create this a bit of a, oh, droopy effect. My reference flew away. Let me bring it here. It's back, it's right here. Okay, so immediately at the bottom of the cloud, you will have some orange yellow, because that is a reflection. So imagine clouds are really three-dimensional shapes. They're not flat, so there is something. So kind of in the where the light is and where the bottom is, there is some reflection of that yellow that's surrounding it, which is the light pretty much. So yeah, you can just add very gently, kind of with the horizontal part of your brush. You can just gently create some more shapes with this yellow. And hopefully everything is still wet. And you may actually end up having a bit of blooms here and there. That's perfectly okay. Don't try to eliminate them. It just happens when there is difference of wet versus dry. So here I have some more color. I'm just getting again this ultramarine and a little bit of yellow, and I'm just adding, see, my paper is already drying. It's this kind that dries super fast. So I'm just moving my brush in any direction. You can always re-wet it, like run clean water over it with a big brush. Make sure the water is really clean. So I'm just running some clean water right here over this, and that's gonna make it nice and soft. And again, you can just lift the paper, let things drip a bit. Has this nice interesting effect. But mainly, yeah, keep the dark. Now we're just painting the dark. So again, I have this indigo, ultramarine. If you don't have those colors, you can always use some brown and blue. Brown and blue together make some really nice shadow colors. So I'm just adding these little shapes over here. We don't have to be, again, following exactly. If your clouds end up looking a bit different, that's perfectly fine. And they get a bit more warm and orange as they go down. I guess this is part of that reflection. So you can just make these completely more orange. Just mix orange with blue, and that's going to give you this other color. So just tap it. I have something on my paper. You can always soften it with your brush, with a big brush. And we're getting some dabs here. There is a little dab over there. And of course my paper keeps drying, so I'm just putting some more clean water. And if you are losing your rays that we created, those rays of light, you can always take the paper towel again and again. If you re-wetted the paper, just put a couple of swipes over these clouds. Not too obvious again, but just right through it. Now it should be nice and clean. We should not be overworking this area. If it doesn't look exactly like the picture of the reference, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. And if you feel the need to add some more, yes, please do. If I feel like maybe something needs to happen over here, and kind of connect to that. So, and of course I introduced some other color, which is making it a bit too much, but that's perfectly fine. So we have now a lot of yellow. So now we can let this dry, this whole area up top. You can again dab a little bit in the light area of the clouds with your paper towel, just a little, to create some more dimension. It leaves some nice marks, really. This whole paper towel does look like clouds, pretty much. So make it nice, pure, and clean. If you don't have too many rays, that's perfectly okay. So maybe something happening over there. Awesome. And again, yeah, you can let it kind of drip. See, I'm lifting it. If I have a lot of water, it just leaves this interesting effect. And it's okay to have some hard edges on the clouds, just a little bit, not everywhere, but as you can see on this dark one, I have a bit of a hard edge, which I will leave as is. I'm lifting, I'm kind of tapping on my table to make colors drip a little bit. I know, so there's some, now I notice these little shapes here. Maybe, yeah, you can maybe paint a few dots, a few dabs right there. Okay, so we're doing good. And now the next step will be completely getting yellow and covering the whole bottom area with yellow. We may leave some dry brush white here on that ground, but we can just color the whole thing with yellow, and that will be the light. That will be your light. So, so let's cover first with water. So clean water everywhere. Clean water everywhere. And this exercise could be done many times on a smaller size sheet of paper, just so you can practice clouds and this whole wet on wet technique and creating soft paintings. I'm just seeing some things here, so I wanted to eliminate them. Okay, so my whole bottom here area is very wet, so we're just grabbing yellow. Let's grab this yellow and really generously just cover the whole thing. You may want to leave a little light, just be a little bit lighter towards the right, but just cover, not too much color, just nice and transparent, because we're going to build it up. But it is this cadmium, very nice and warm. Very warm. So now that everything is really nice and wet everywhere, we're going to grab our other big brush and we're going to build the layers of this whole background. So we're going to start from the very back, and this is the mountain right behind everything, which is going to be cooler tone. So I will mix some of this blue and I will mix this gray tone. So ultramarine, a bit of indigo, just like the color of the clouds. So this is going to be my mountain that's in the very back. And let's dab some yellow too, so it kind of stays connected to what's above it. And just paint the very top of this mountain that's in the very back. It's all the way in the back. And just pull up your paper and let things drip a bit. And just wipe with a bigger brush right underneath so you can create this effect of it's disappearing. Like there is a fog right underneath. Then this whole color is gonna get a little bit warmer because there is another layer of mountains. So I will mix indigo. Let me see from my computer. I have another laptop on my left with all these references. Okay, so I'm mixing some red and indigo. Again, going into the grays, but it's slightly darker. It's slightly darker than what we have in the very back. And here, just make sure that this edge is not too sharp, the very top of the edge. Hopefully your paper is still wet. And just go very gently. And then you can slowly gradate this color into more yellow. So, and maybe warmer orange right here, because that's the reflection of the mountains. And I know there's some other mountain behind, so yeah, we can make this be very, very soft. So again, go horizontal with a clean water to soften these, almost just creating this nice fog in front. And I'm dripping my paper, letting the pigment go down, and then create this nice soft direction. While you have that, you can now keep adding some of this darker color, because I know there are a whole bunch of other hills here. You can just add a little bit right in the front. And now there is the other hill here on this side, which is going to be the one of the darkest. The darkest is going to be the foreground right here, this ground, but there is another one here that's going to be kind of the darkest. And we're going to get some of our darkish red if we have, and we will mix it with indigo and get almost purplish dark tone. See, red, indigo. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to move my palette right here. So I have this dark red, some indigo, and I'm going to get a very dark tone right here. If we paint this light, remember, it's going to dry even lighter. And I would want you to go a second layer on this painting, maybe on the foreground, but for this particular scene, I'm picking up some color off my paper here. So in this particular scene, definitely, it should be kind of almost a la prima, one swipe. We may add some dark here on my cloud, but generally we'll keep it very, very light. So this exercise is just an exercise of wet on wet and how wonderful things can be really when we paint this type of technique. And again, it's very, very dark, and I'm looking at it, and it's almost like there is a reflection. So I'm grabbing more pigment and more warm, and we're gonna create this little reflection, going with vertical brush strokes and some horizontal. And with water, we're going to soften these edges. Kind of have them go like this. Okay, if you guys have noise in the background, you may want to mute yourself so it's not interfering with other people. So here we have again, I just lifted a bit of light in this whole dark area. And I'm just adding a little bit more of the dark because I know this will dry very way lighter than it looks. So we continue, and again, lift, tap, tap, hopefully it's all wet. And we will continue with the other hill or no, it's a island. Use a bunch of islands and let it gradate into yellow, just like it is over there. And yes, some edges could be sharper, some could be softer. I'm just gonna get clean water, just run it right under, and just have some nice horizontal lines with clean water, just nice swipes. Leave some light here. Obviously there is some light going on over there, and you can lift some of the top of these hills because that is the light area. That's where the light, they're being hit by the light. So here I'm just going to lift a little bit and some. You can do our technique, our funny effect with clean water and just spatter a little bit. It will create some nice watercolory dots. And there is another mountain right here. Let's make it slightly redder. But again, not too red. Like I'm mixing indigo with red. Just keep it on the warm side. And I'm just adding another mountain right here. So if you can achieve this air between them, meaning they gradate, so they're darker on the top and go lighter as they go down, that will create this interesting foggy effect. So painting on top, painting the top. And cleaning our brush and kind of going horizontal and softening the bottom. That will create this nice foggy effect between the mountains. I lost this a bit, so let's edit. Okay, so I just like to, the pigment to go down and drip down a little bit. That's creating some nice direction going down. I spatter a little bit with my clean water, just a little bit. Everything should be really wet, so hopefully it leaves this cool effect. So now suddenly I see how my painting is really drying, starting to dry very, very light. I probably should have punched some more yellow, and now I'm tempted to go a second layer on the sky, but okay, I'll think for now. So here we can have this really intense yellow at the bottom of where the river is. So I'm just going to edit very, very nice and bright. Don't be afraid to use pure color. So here it's just pure cadmium. It's so bright, it's just insane. So you can use any yellow, whatever yellow you have, as long as it's nice and bright. I'm just gonna add it. And you can take a bigger brush, and that immediately adds life to our work. And I'm just bringing it out a bit. Oh, of course, my reference keeps flying away. Alright, so here's, it should be really, really yellow here. And let's add some warm orange maybe at the bottom, because there is distance. So from here to there is a bit of a distance, so that color will change. So I'm just adding another gradient, and that warm orange and yellow could be over here. And now here we can actually have a lot of fun with this foreground. I'm gonna introduce some more intense colors right there, because we need a punch. Remember, we just need to punch this sometimes to get interesting stuff going on, so people can stop and look at our painting and don't get too bored. So I'm adding some dark, so this is going to be really dark and with less water. Now I'm grabbing some indigo and kind of in every direction painting this hill, just adding some interesting brush strokes. Nothing too distinct at this point, just very, very roughly. And eventually we will add nice details there with our rigger brush or whatever thin brush we have. So if you want to build these hills a little bit more, yes, you can just add whatever you need to add. I'm just dabbing a little bit more detail. I know there should be this ray of light, so you can really, let's see if I swipe it with my paper towel, if it's gonna do the trick. This is already dry, but maybe the mountain is not, so I'm doing this, and it did it, so I'm leaving it like that, because we want to have these rays going over the mountains. So I'm gonna do another one like that, and don't really press too hard, just gently do ta-da and leave it like that, and let the watercolor do whatever it does, but make sure you do it while it's still wet. And maybe swipe on this side here a bit. And over this yellow stuff. So now, as I mentioned, these clouds kind of look light to me, and my clouds look a bit different. Just suddenly they're looking blue. So I'm going to go with a second layer over them, but try not to be too hard. So I will put some clean water right over it. Make sure your water is absolutely clean so you're not muddy everything. And we're going to mix some indigo and some red. I really didn't want this to look too blue, so indigo and red is going to warm it up, and maybe a dash of orange to make it richer and warmer. And I will add some more dark to it, and just dab it and let it do its trick. If for some reason your clouds look as light as mine. And just let it do whatever the water does when it hits the paper. Almost looks the same as the hills, which is fine. Yeah, that is what it looks really. So here, and I will add more here on this side. Yeah, just make sure you don't have too many harsh edges yet. I forgot, I need to put some clean water. You can spray it if you have a spray bottle. But this is going second layer pretty much. So I'm gonna lift it, let it maybe drip a bit. Okay, make sure the swipes look nice and soft and not too harsh. I'm wetting here this area because it seemed a little bit light, the sky, and again I'm gonna add this nice bright yellow that we have, like cadmium or whatever yellow you have, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of color on this side. I really want to intensify that sky a bit more, so I just added some punch. So it's not too late. When everything dries, you can still, with clean water, remember clean water and a white brush, just go over it or just spray it and add color. And let it do its things. Maybe add some more over here. But less is more, and especially in this type of painting, really less is more. We don't want to go crazy and go over and destroy this ethereal feel to what we're trying to achieve. Of course, you can lift a little bit, not with dirty brush though. With clean water, you can lift some areas, maybe horizontally. Do some swipes. You can do a lot of cool things with just your clean but wet paper towel. Just wet your paper towel, make sure it's clean and there are no bunch of colors on it, and kind of do some swipey effects, just a little bit, and then repeat that whole light that's falling. White paper towel. I mean, not white, I'm sorry, wet. It has to be wet. Okay, now if you want to lift some of the white clouds, if you lost them, again, you can always lift again with this paper towel. Or with your brush. You can always lift with the brush too. But keep it nice and soft, and whatever happened with your watercolor, it could be something completely different. I'm sure it's wonderful. We're gonna keep it very alla prima. And with a dry brush, we will create some nice shrubbery here as a foreground to kind of get the eye in the very front. So I'm taking the other brush, the rigger, and mixing a very thick dark color, thickly, not too much water. I'm taking the indigo, maybe some brown here, that burnt sienna, or maybe the red, the dark red, and very thick dark red, indigo, and just start going in every direction. We're painting this interesting foreground right in the very front. These are silhouettes of cool grass that have different shapes. Make sure they're not too thick, but as a general rule, there should be variety. So put your brush in different directions. Even if some spatter happens, that's perfectly fine. Maybe some dots. So here I'm just dabbing everywhere. Here you can have a lot of fun with your dry brush. Make sure it doesn't have too much water on it. See, it's completely dry. It leaves interesting lines. That's what's gonna create really fun stuff, and that's gonna be your focal point, really. That's the attention of the whole painting. So I know it goes all around here, kind of nicely framing, grounding, anchoring your painting, really, if you have these dark areas at the bottom. So it shouldn't be all the same. We're gonna strive for a bit of a variety, and some could have some spatter, like a little dark spatter. It's spattered a bit all the way. That's okay, you know, this is watercolor, really, that's the whole point. So some lines can go to the left, just could be, make sure they're not all going in the same direction. So that is that second layer. And yeah, it's nice to have a dry brush because that creates very high contrast. in that area. And you can make them as high. This grass could be even higher, just to create some more interest. Some of them, maybe one or two could be, so we have variety in length. Just again, indigo and red. And I'm adding a second layer right here at the very bottom. Just super fun, have a lot of fun with that brush. As you can see, I'm just moving it in all directions. We have, so now it's 11:45 and we have actually 45 minutes to even paint the second painting if you guys ready. But this you should be in a good spot where you feel like it's almost finished. It should not be overworked. It is a nice fun exercise of wet on wet, creating light with less is more. And again, dabbing a little bit of light, just dry brush, creating some nice interesting marks. You can even take some paper towel to create texture, add some more. You can really have a lot of fun with this area. So even after everything is all dry, you can go back to it and add, and you can add a bit of different color right there. I know I made it all really dark, but you can get this dark red, and maybe add a bit of red because obviously it's a sunset and we have these red colors here probably reflecting. So even maybe orange, just to have depth and variety. And if you try to paint this scene again, trust me, it actually is gonna be even better because you kind of made the sketch, you made all the decisions already, you know what's where. So you will be even more confident the second time around and probably make different decisions, like decide the sky to be really dark or the water to be dark. Just experiment with some things. But here just I'm making a little grouping, and remember, for those who've taken my class, I like having little clusters like this. Is especially if we're dealing with nature, they all kind of go in little clusters and groupings, so that's gonna be cool. And adding more than is there, just for the fun of it. And you can just dab, create this. But let me know if you're ready for the next one, because yeah, this shouldn't be painted for hours, like 30 minutes, no more. And you know, even swipe a bit and let it dry, and you'll see when it dries, it's gonna look really cool. Somehow the watercolor does something to our papers while it's drying. Maybe here there needs to be a swipe. It's not wet anymore. That's okay. Maybe a little bit of texture. And as a interesting suggestion, you can, especially if you have cadmium yellow gets very opaque sometimes, so I love using it for some effects, like if I want something more like a little spatter here on this grass, just a little bit, don't overdo it, but it will show on top of the dark, it will show interestingly. And that's it, and not too much. Just because yellow is everywhere, I'd like to pop it in here too. Okay, very good. So yeah, let me know if you want to just dive into the second one. And you'll see now that you kind of warmed up, you will do the second one real fast, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We have about 40 minutes and beyond, and we can stay, you know, all the way up until 1 as I mentioned last time, I've extended the hours just because I know sometimes we need to stay late and we need to ask a bunch of questions, and it's just gonna be cool. No rush. Okay, so I don't wanna really work on this anymore because it's possible to to ruin it, because we all know this is always the case when we overwork it, but we know how to resuscitate it. Because we learned that lesson, that we always punch it with something very bright and that brings it back to life. So we're gonna be even more bold and more really brave with the second one, which is this nice fairy tale looking forest. Okay. So now the question is, do we need to even draw it? How about we just very roughly indicate tree number 1 on the left, and don't make it parallel to the edge. Make it a little bit slanted, kind of going in this direction. And here we have these interesting roots. And then the one on the right is going to be thicker. So again, slightly at the angle, but it will have some really cool texture, some more nice interesting roots here. We will have some foreground. So this is all foliage. Then we have a third tree coming from the back at an angle, just like that, and meeting somewhere here in the middle, ending right there. And we have some really interesting branches extending everywhere. So there is also a path. So I'm going to draw a bit of a horizon line here. And the path, make sure you follow this. Amy, is this Amy? Somebody has their microphone on.
Wherever you want to go to get trained by the Zio before.
Is that was me or something?
You may want to mute, or somebody.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, because there are lots of noise going on. Okay, so here we have that path, and let's have this perspective. So make sure it just gets smaller, and then it gets a little wider when it comes closer. Can you guys see it well? Hopefully you can. I don't know if you can. All right. So this is it. That's all I need for the sketch. Not overthink it. Make sure your perspective is right. See how it's small and extends. It gets wider as it gets closer. So how we're going to approach this painting, you actually may want to change your water. If you guys have water near you and quickly can run and get some clean water, that will be good, because we still have this water from the previous painting, and we may want to actually use clean water. If you don't have water near you and it's too much work, don't worry. Don't worry. Actually, I personally I'm going to use my same water, which is, it has 3 compartments. That's the best part, and one is really clean, so I'm going to use that. So again, we're going to start painting this from the very back to the front. So the very back, and we're going to keep building it, and at the end we're going to paint this foreground. So because why we do that is because watercolor, we always start from the lighter or medium value, and at the very end we add the dark value. So that's why we start with the back, because the back is always a little bit lighter. Not always, but in this particular case. So let's wet again. We're wetting our paper. And if you're still going and grabbing water, just shout out and say, wait, wait. I'm gonna wait, but I'm just wetting this whole area right now. And this is, we're gonna use lots of pigment. Just don't be afraid to really make nice and thick paint, just to mix it nice and not too light, because if it's too light we're gonna need to go too many layers. So here I just wet the whole paper, and we're going to have a nice yellowish color, because that's that light that I see in the back. So I'm taking my cadmium again and just go all across, and don't go yeah, you can just go down with this, but that's pretty much a nice yellow color, almost like an underpainting everywhere. While you have that, make sure everything is really wet. So I'm just going to bring it down right away. And while everything is still wet, let's make these sun rays. Wipe them out with a paper towel, and you just go 1, 2, a few times. And yeah. We're adding these lights right there. Okay, so I'm just like wiping it. Make sure your paper towel is clean. Mine wasn't. It had something blue on it, so it did leave a little mark, but we want to really make it as clean and as pure as possible. But we'll add some more of these, and you know, you can kind of wipe some of this white area right there. So this is going to be your lightest, and we're not going to do too much. We're going to keep this nice and soft. And with our other big brush now, we're going to paint the second layer, which is again still part of the background. And we're going to mix, now we're going to use some of our greens. So I have some lightish green here, it doesn't matter what green you guys have, just mix a nice lighter green and dab some yellow in it. So yellow green, should be a warmer green, because it's all the way in the back. It should be painted very lightly. And you know, there's obviously some trees behind. This is not the big tree I'm painting, this is all whatever's happening in the back. So very lightly, make sure it has yellow in it. And I'm just adding a bit of little dabs. So paint this very freely. Don't really worry too much if it's not perfect or where's what. Just right now see it as an abstract shape, really. These are all big abstract shapes, and I know that there is something behind. There's some more other things going on. Just adding this greenish light green color, like big green blobs really of color. We are not dealing with any detail at this point. So I'm mixing this green, I think it's a turquoise green that I have, with yellow. And I'm just adding some more of this foliage here. So that's not our foreground. And this is this tree. If you want to darken it, just add some more indigo and you'll get this gray, almost gray tone. That's gonna look really nice against the light. No details yet, nothing, just yellow, green, big blobs of color here, and that's the medium value pretty much. And I'm right next to the tree. There is some leaves popping, and you can have fun right away with this, with these leaves. Make sure that you move the brush in any in any direction, maybe some dry brush, and kind of disappear. There's some leaves up there, and some more over here. And again, you can warm up with some yellow, add some yellow in between, but nothing too specific, nothing too particular. We'll add all these details a little bit later. Now, the same blobs of green, so I'm getting this green. So the whole purpose is we go from the very back again, we're using our medium values, and here I'm just adding some green over here on the left. And you can even dry brush it. Make sure you leave some areas that are white, like a see-through in between. My paper is already drying. It's okay. Here we can have a lot of fun with these effects that watercolor leaves, really. So leave some areas just very abstract, leave some areas white, kind of see through, and just move your brush. So this is how we paint foliage. And when you squint your eye, you do see these little white areas, so that's basically the light popping through. Alright, so again, that's the medium value. And we are adding now this grass in the very front. That's actually hit by the light, so it should be almost yellow. So we're going to mix a nice, almost like lime yellow color, and I want to quickly add this right here just to get myself some ideas of color and value, and just dab these colors right here. And this is how quickly we paint, really. We don't overthink it, we don't go everywhere and just go this tree, that tree, this tree. We will do that, but we just immediately, we already have it all figured out. So here I'm just putting, and then everything else that's gonna be left is basically detail, which is the fun part. So here I'm just adding some more green, and anything that's close to the light, let's really mix it with yellow. And maybe add some blobs of yellow right here. So I'm just gonna get pure yellow and just put another blob right here. That's gonna give a great sense of light. See, I just put this blob right here of yellow. And if you lost some of your sun rays, you can always do that. Now that you have that medium value, you can always just do a bit of swiping with your paper towels. Alright. Okay, and now again yellow, because now we're gonna move to the light areas of those trees. And I'm gonna just roughly, if we can, do a dry brush on that light with yellow, that's gonna be the light. And on this side too, that is hit by the light. So these are all the yellow highlights. We don't want to lose that, so that's why I'm adding it right now. And I keep grabbing this red. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. There's yellow. My yellow is right here. And we're just dabbing a bit. So we are starting now to move forward and to kind of indicate what's happening here. And again, this yellow probably should be here on this very front of the path. And make sure if you can create some dry brush there on that path, that will be great. But we can always go back to it later. So now we have our blobs. Now we're going to add this dark value of these of the trees in the very front. because now we're gonna start working with the values really, and we're gonna mix a very, very dark value. Okay, I have it right here on my laptop. And we'll get indigo, generous amount of pigment and water, like nice big puddle I'm making. And let's grab some now burnt sienna to warm it up. And I will try to really paint this area by leaving some interesting texture, if you can. See this texture? When I run it very fast, it leaves almost like a dry brush technique. So make sure you have lots of pigment and some water, and when you go super fast, it does leave this dry brush right away. Make sure your brush is big. And even if it spreads out, you know how some brushes kind of, you can just spread it out and just run it real fast, and it leaves this ultra cool dry brush. So here again on this side, I even have like a blob of paint on top of it. This is how much pigment I grabbed, just very fast. If your paper is very wet, it won't leave the dry brush. You really have to kind of run it horizontal and super fast, and make sure your paper is dry. So here you can just leave some interesting dry brush moves where the roots are. There is some dark right here, and now little by little we're going to start building this whole thing. And I know it extends and kind of frames again this paper really nicely. So yeah, it will have some nice interesting lines. Don't be afraid. Like, the whole point is to be super brave with your brush strokes, and it's going to show. It's going to show in your painting when you're very brave. I'm just grabbing now some umber. No, this is rose sienna or burnt sienna, and I'm gonna add some more colors now on this tree, because these trees are really the foreground and they have a lot going on there. We want to have some nice interesting texture and some color. So let's mix some of this burnt umber and a little bit of red, and just run it and just add some more color to it. And yeah, keep up with this dry brush technique. I know that there's some green leaves on this side, so make sure, you know, be very generous and free with your brush strokes, and you'll see how nicely it's gonna dry. So some warm here, getting in that direction, and after it dries, we can always go back again and do some dry brush here in this light area to create this texture. And you can again take your paper towel and dab it on this dark. See how it creates interesting texture, almost looking like tree texture. But it's dark and dramatic. It's very dramatic. So we create this fairy tale dramatic scene right here, and have fun. We do the same with the one on the left. And here we go. So I'm just adding some warmth. So basically whatever's close to us should have some warm colors, and that's why I'm adding these warm tones right here. And I know there are some leaves in the very foreground, so there will be green, but not quite, maybe with some brown. I'll mix them with some brown, and you can always, they will be in the dark. obviously, so I'm just dabbing some here with generous amount of pigment. Just have them, they don't have to be super obvious, I know they're like in the front, but, and make sure that, again, your trees are not the same. One should be different, like one should be thicker, one should be thinner. I'm gonna add a bit of width to this one. So nothing in your painting should be exactly the same. And again, you can do some paper towel. Maybe. Yeah, trees are great to paint because you can do whatever you want really with that. And it's still gonna look good. Like any texture, anything, it's great. Now there is another tree right in the back here. We will paint this. It won't be as dark. I know it looks really dark, but we're gonna try to make it a little bit lighter and more on the blue. So we can introduce maybe mix some ultramarine blue, some ultramarine with indigo, because we want this to recede, to feel like it's behind that tree. If it was the same intensity, it was gonna fight it, and it won't create sense of depth. So I'm getting this ultramarine and indigo, so it's cooler. And here we're going to paint this tree right here behind, and let it go right up here. And now this is more of a silhouette, so you can, dab, swipe, fill some edges, as long as you kind of have the basic shape there. And again, you can now mix that gray that we got with some yellow and create some very, very nice branches and have fun with those branches. Now these branches, remember, they're against the light, so they should be there should be some yellow in that color. So I'm mixing yellow with indigo. It kind of looks green, but still it's not too dark, so make sure it's not like black or dark. It has this tone, kind of a greenish tone, as if blue in the light. So I'm I'm putting this tree trunk, actually branch, that's a branch here, there's another one coming up here, and you can have a lot of fun with these. One is extending more. Yeah, make sure nothing is parallel. As you can see, this is the epitome of nature. Like everything is chaotic. Nothing is parallel to anything. There's no straight angles. Things are just all over the map. It's a jungle, really. So we want to try to replicate this and be careful. So here we have some lines, some more trees in the back with a little bit of darker green. I'm not going to use brown there because I don't want to really fight this with my foreground. So just keep it back, receding. Going here. And we can have a lot of fun with these trees with some dry brush eventually. And since we have our big blobs of color, we won't have any issues because we already have the main tone going underneath. So here we go. I'm just adding some more. And I keep jumping, from area to area. You may have different type of way of painting, like maybe focus on one area more and then moving on. But just keeping your whole painting active at all times makes you kind of bring it all to life all at the same time, instead of losing track of where you were and then going back and keep going back and forth. So here we go. So I'm just adding a little bit orange. I know this is starting to get near the light, so these branches will have some orange to them. And there is dark over here in this area, this brushes, so I'm adding that dark there. So we get green, indigo, green, and right here I'm just gonna add some dark. Now you can just make it as a blob, as a whole again. You don't have to be lost in every single detail. You can kind of lift a little bit, again creating texture, but we will add all these guys later. So how about now we look at this path and see what we do with it. So kind of take some of this green, and you may want to define it a little bit more. Not completely, like some edges should be lost. So I'm tapping in some areas. I want to make sure that you see some areas, but some should be lost to have this dreamy feel. And I'm gonna get a bit of orange, a little bit of orange. Here I have a little puddle. And you see there's just texture. So we're creating an impression really of what's happening on that path. It's not very light, there's stuff going on, there are leaves, I'm just dabbing. We're creating this kind of a chaotic feel. So putting some yellow, just dab it with your brush. Maybe some dry brush, so I'm gonna run it horizontal, just like this. See how this dry brush immediately gives me some texture. I'm getting some darker brown here. Maybe the path is getting a little bit darker on this side. And again, I'm tapping with my paper towel, just creating some texture. So it shouldn't be super smooth and perfect. And if I lost some of the yellow, you can always, add it. And maybe it gets more yellow towards the light. See here, that's the area where it's kind of hit by the light. So definitely I'm gonna put some yellow here. That's going to really create a nice sense of light right here. And again, our favorite that I forgot, maybe throw in some clean water, spatter, if anything is still wet. Anything is still wet, we're just spattering a little bit, and it does create some funky effects right there. And now we're gonna get more and more involved with this detail. Let me see. Oh, it's 12:21 already. So very quickly, I'll show you how we can deal with this super fast. All right. So I'm mixing this nice green color, whatever green I have, and yellow, and now getting all into the detail basically. So not too much water, just in any direction, in every direction. Now we're trying to create the leaves, the leaf shapes. Okay, and some more. So this is kind of a second layer on top of these other leaves. And just very, very quickly creating some more detail here. And I'm taking now the rigger because I really want to create this super nice branches that we saw that are in the light over there. So I have yellow and green, almost like lime green, and now very thinly we're gonna add a lot of details, painting them almost like a dry brush technique, very fine with fine lines. See how these branches are going in all kinds of direction. Some are actually even going down, and we're going to soften some of them, so I'll show you how we can do that. But it's all the impression of all these lines happening everywhere. So I'm adding also some water to maybe kill some of the sharpness to them. But again, green, yellow, more over here. Or just light green stuff is happening just with your rigor, and not too parallel. Again, I keep repeating it. So green, yellow stuff here is really coming out, and there's some more happening. So there's a lot of lines. Definitely the rigger brush or some thin brush could get very useful in exactly this area. And there's some, just make sure you mix it with yellow, whatever you're mixing there, green with yellow. So it does give that feel of light. So I'm just very freely adding some lines. Very refined. These are just refined, nice lines. There's another one right here. I think these are just trees. And always add some clean water just to soften some areas so nothing looks exactly the same. With that same brush, you can just add some maybe suggestions of leaves. So I'm just dabbing, little dabs. Definitely yellow because it's all in the light. It's all in the light. A lot going on, but don't overdo it because it's all in the light, and it's when you look at the light, everything kind of disappears really, so it shouldn't be super sharp. Just adding some leaves and stuff. And now again with that rigger brush, I'm gonna add some of this tree, slightly darker, again green and yellow, but slightly more pigment because it's closer. And there is a very cool tree behind here with some very interesting leaves. So I'm just gonna add very like in a free dabbing way these nice lines to show the detail. Again, make sure you have yellow in it because it is also being hit by the light. So anything that's hit by a light, it does sort of disappear into this whole yellow flood of light. So here it goes in every direction. There's my cat meowing in the background. Okay, so here we have some more leaves, and definitely yellow. So I'm gonna grab my bigger brush, actually one that can hold some more paint, and grab some more yellow, and definitely add some more dabs of yellow here for these areas of the leaves. See how quickly, I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm moving my hands so fast, like I'm dabbing and moving in all kinds of directions and leaving these cool marks on the paper. So this way you don't overthink it, and whatever your hand leaves, that's it. That's really nice. So here I'm just adding shrubbery. That's a great exercise of really getting very dexterous with your brushes. Guess that's the word, right? So here we're getting more green. Just want to add some more, just variety really, and nice colors. Very light, very green, very clean. It should look clean because it's in the light. Maybe just a dash of dark just a little bit to sort of outline, bring this out. And we're going to add some more detail on the left. And we're going to darken it. It's going to be darker. So here I'm just again using that same pointy brush and just going in every single direction. Really. So not too much. So we're not going to overdo everything. I know we see a million details there, but we're going to be selective with what we see and what we paint. So just create an impression. I'm grabbing some more of this green here. And it's coming in the front. It's very chaotic, so just try to recreate that whole feel, that whole impression. Leave some light in between. And again, if things start looking too much the same, just run some water, dab some water on the very top, and things will go freely. But leave some stuff underneath. This green is very intense. I'm gonna kill it with some yellow, and we just keep going. So basically this is how we add the detail, really. And you can always, dab with your paper towel to add some texture. So my yellow is, I'm running out of yellow, but here we can always, add some dry brush on the trees. Actually, before we go to the trees, I'm just gonna quickly move to this area of the brushes and again add some more detail and see some are going in this direction, some leaves are going in that direction. So make sure you have lines and dabs and lines. That's what it looks like pretty much to me. So very, very free. We're not really outlining anything. Whatever the brush stroke is leaving some marks. That's it. Yeah, my cat is very vocal. I don't know, just needs a lot of attention when it's not the wrong time. So here we go. So we're adding some of these, maybe darkening some of these. So I just keep adding. So maybe some are extending over the path. Maybe there's some little grass here. You can go as crazy as you want really in this whole area. It doesn't have to be, too much. Just be selective again. Some areas could be very, very intense. Some shouldn't be. Usually at the bottom of every brushes or greenery, the bottom, any foliage, the bottom is darker. So I'm just going to add a bit of a dark here just to anchor it. And maybe there is a line of something popping up behind. Be as free and as crazy as you want. So here we go. And again, as I always say, yeah, you can always run some clean water, create and destroy. That's the whole point. And then we go a bit, maybe some more green over here. And maybe some yellow, yeah. Yellow should be pretty much everywhere because it's kind of popping through this forest. So maybe some yellow behind here. I'm just adding it. And these very quick exercises, as you can see, are so great at getting us become fearless, really, in painting with watercolor. Because if we have too much time, then we start feeling a bit sluggish and we take too long to create something. So you can actually spatter some yellow. That's pretty much the light, kind of a highlight here in this area. Again, you can add some yellow up top because it is light showing through, so that does create a really nice sense of light. The trees, we can run now some very cool dry brush on them, like a second layer. And for those of you who are a little bit slower with this, don't hesitate. You just continue painting even if the class is over. We don't have to, you know, stop and that's it, finish. You can continue and make sure, yeah, you finish your painting. Some people just work at a different pace, so not a problem at all. We're trying to create something that we like, and you are the one deciding if you're happy with it and when to stop. But again, don't overwork it. So here I'm just keep adding a little bit of yellow, especially here in the foreground. It could be a bit richer in color. So I'm just adding, again, dash, just an impression of a path and wood stuff and foliage and whatever's going on over there. I know there's probably some orange here. So these trees, you can just clean your brush, not too much water, and mix. What do I see on that? Yeah, maybe create some interesting dry brush on them, on that light area. I think that's gonna look more like the moss. So I'm just taking this green, not too much water, and just run it horizontally to create a nice dry brush texture. See, a little bit looking like a moss, but not too much. And on this side too, because it just looks too smooth, and trees definitely have texture. And if it looks too much, you always wet it to kind of make it disappear. You can add some darks to them, a little bit more dark, and really have fun with this whole tree area. Again, with texture. Definitely texture. I know it goes in this direction. There should be light. There should be some really nice dark area right here. Now we're paying attention to exactly placement of stuff. So there is a nice dark, that could be our punch. Like there is a punch right here, right here. It could be super dark. And then here is this root. These are the roots. And maybe some more texture, but things can disappear, some edges can disappear, nothing should be completely outlined. I'm going to even add more drama now that I'm looking at it. This is the process of unifying things, like so we dabble here, we dabble there. Now how about we unify the whole thing? So I'm gonna mix a nice dark tone. This is this indigo and green, and I'm gonna really bring this into the dark, this whole area, and almost not have this outline of a tree on both sides, because it looks like, ta-da, it's like too much the same. So I'm just darkening this whole area and make it go into the tree, like just disappear this whole edge. And I just added a very dark tone and add some with the white, with the big brush, add some water too, and things will just dissolve into each other. So punching it with a little bit more dark again. I keep looking at this, and maybe some dark over here, just to avoid sameness, just to have some variety on this side. And again, yeah, there is definitely more drama in this foreground, so more dark. It's more into the shadow, but don't lose whatever's popping through. Some light is popping. And you can have, you know, kind of go past the reference and have things cross through that tree, like little lines. I know there's some leaves. Yeah, some darker lines maybe coming out. you should have now at this point, this is the fun part really, just adding this whole fun lines going everywhere. Okay, and here I don't want to lose these interesting branches that are coming out. Is it raining? I think it's raining outside. I don't know. Wherever you guys are, I hear rain. But I really wanted to simplify this area a little bit. So how are you guys doing? Show me what you have, and if you have any questions. Again, yeah, this is the part when we kind of simplify, we unify. As you notice, I didn't really go into too much detail, only in just some areas. Like you see some, others we just unify with our bigger brush. And if you feel like we overworked some areas, always just take the bigger brush, get some water and some paint, and just put it and be swipe it. Let things just be worked through the imagination. We don't have to spell every single thing we see on our reference. As wonderful as it is, we still want to have a bit mystery to it. That makes it even better. So here we're going to add this. And if anything is still wet, you can still do this if you want some of the light. I mean, sometimes these rays of light are tricky. You don't want to overdo them because they may look a bit too much or too intentional. Like they should look natural. So you can always grab your yellow, like mix some water with yellow and just run that yellow. So here it is. The cadmium is very opaque, so it may create some really nice sense of light. And these are going to be our finishing touches pretty much. Oh, it flew away. Okay, here it is. So I'm just mixing nice puddle here of yellow, and we can run this interesting white. Ta-da! And just one swipe, even with a bigger brush. You can be very bold with that and kind of kill some of it, not all. It shouldn't be like one line, like going all across, but let it do its thing. Some more. So definitely the yellow does help with that sense of light here. And you can be as bright and bold with it as you can. And just let it go. I know there's some more here. And that's it. So now there is the danger again of overworking it. So I will leave that white for now, so I don't mess with it anymore. And hopefully you guys are ready to show me something. I'm gonna get some more. Maybe, yeah, it never ends. Maybe add this leaf, maybe add that leaf. Oh, how about that one? It never ends. So we just keep adding and adding a little bit, just a little. Don't overwork it. Some things should stay very natural, disappearing, appearing, disappearing. going into the trees. Make sure some things are breaking into the trees so they're not like these monolithic things right there. Maybe define some of that, a little bit of this edge here. I know we lost the edge on the right, but maybe on the left we can kind of work on that edge a little bit, make it sharper. So these are just finishing touches pretty much. But see how quickly we go from, oh, we're just doing the big shapes, to, oh, we are almost finished now. So that process shouldn't take too long. Like we're just doing the blobs, blob here, blob there. And then little by little we're ready to go into the details and doing our darks, and here we go. Almost there. So I just want to kill some of this ultra yellow on the left. What am I painting right now? I'm just comparing some of all these values. And you can do our trickery with some drips. Why not? So light is a lot of softness to it, as you notice, so there shouldn't be too many harsh colors there or harsh edges. We should maintain and keep it soft. Details here. I tend to paint with a lot of water sometimes, so this is one of the cases. I really dump too much water and lots of paint too. So when they interact, they do get interesting. You'll get interesting effects. Okay. So we have a nice pleasant Tuesday of painting. We're just so lucky that we can paint in the middle of the day. Some people are in an office or doing numbers, and here we are painting watercolors. Feel free to show me, guys. I know, what time is it now? 12:45. Yay! Perfect. Yes. So let me know what you came up with. Alright, so who am I looking at? Okay, so that's, oh, Addie, that is great. Okay, so one at a time, looking fabulous. I love the light that you left there. You can dump some more water here to kind of soften it a little bit, but I love those trees. They look great. You're really getting bolder and bolder. This is Manusha. Yes. Yes, very nice. I'm sorry, Amy, I'll get to you too. Yes, awesome. Looking good, looking good. Yes, beautiful detail. I see a lot of detail. I see the trees being different on both sides. I see a lot of fun going on. Awesome. Okay, so Amy was next. Oh, wow. And John, that looks fabulous. I love the softness in the background. I love that because that gives a really nice sense of depth. I know you kind of put these trees flush to the edge, but that's okay. I love it. Just keep adding. Just add some. You're adding it some more branches. So I love that softness, kind of a dreamy going into the distance, and super duper. Everybody's looking really good. This is Lindsay. Lindsay, great job, great job. I wish I could just take a picture of all of you guys right there with your paintings. Oh, and there's Gretchen. Fabulous, fabulous. Love those trees. Love those trees. You guys really did a fantastic job. I love those trees. Yeah, Lindsay, Gretchen. I love the softness that you all left here with the light. That is so cool. It looks really like a fairy tale. I love that part. So Amy, I saw only part of your painting actually. I couldn't see the whole thing. Oh wow, okay. I love it. Yeah, lots of green. You're very bold with your trees. Yes, you kept that light. You may want to put some water here and maybe just wipe where the light is so you have some more light there. But overall, it looks really good. Add some more detail. I would suggest some more detail here and maybe up top just to see some leaves going. But everybody is looking absolutely fabulous. What were the challenges? Did you guys find anything challenging or not quite clear? And we can go over it.
I think I feel that it gets too wet for me.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe,
That concern.
yeah. But that's okay, actually. Yeah, that's watercolor. Definitely when we wet it, it does get very wet, but it does add some nice effects, really. That's what watercolor is. And you can always dab it with your paper towel if it's way too much. So hopefully you had fun. And now you can always, add accent color. So we always talk about this accent color. Last time I mentioned it. Now that you have this mostly green yellow environment, you can just get some orange. That could be a nice accent, and really nice and bright, and just tap it in some areas, like maybe here in the front. That is too much. It should be minimally like 3% of your painting should have a bit of an accent. So maybe a little bit here, maybe a little dot here. It does create an additional sense of light. So especially here in the front, so adds to this whole depth. Just a couple of dots, maybe a little bit of light or some just nice, interesting grassy things. And hopefully we're doing good. Do you guys want to continue with more nature scenes next time? Is that better? Then let's say we could paint water, like a lake with a mountain and a reflection, like something like that. Water is cool. Water could be really interesting with reflection. So, what do you think? You can just vote.
That would be good, or ocean.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, remember, I posted the wave. We can paint the wave. Remember that wave? I painted a long time ago with watercolor, so we can do something similar over ocean. And we can do two. How about we do two? So we force ourselves to really paint expressively. Oh, we're gonna do great. Okay, good idea. Because sometimes we get tired of, farms and trees. So something challenging. Okay, good idea.
Lucy, can you just check now? I did little tree.
Yes, now that is much, much better. Yes, see, now you're adding some more detail, more branches are coming out. Yes, absolutely. And the
And I
light,
put little red in here.
I love it. Absolutely great. I love the trees. They're really nice. You didn't make them parallel to the edges. So it's fabulous.
I'm just not my email is messed up. Like my picture is. I'm just using my phone, not using my computer.
Oh,
laptop.
it's okay.
So,
Yes, sometimes.
I'm not in my picture when I'm doing, but it's just like not. I'm gonna prepare for next week.
Don't worry. Yeah, I'll make sure that I send it. A couple of days before, so it's not last minute. And I think that whole link is gonna be the same because it's like a one endless class. So, so it's gonna be the same link. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Keep practicing.